Afrikaans was the language that was pushed to most of us.
Afrikaans was implemented as a language of instruction.
I feel like in private schools you're offered more subjects, more choices.
So definitely we don't have equality. If there's a private school and a public school,
We should just take control of what we have.
Sex before marriage is because we can't handle ourselves anymore.
I understand the matter of hormones, but there's something called self-control.
I'm allowed to over-sexualize myself without you having to want to have sex with me and make me an object.
I don't think there's any benefit in dating. You'll date after high school. Why are we as the youth of today thinking about dating when we're still in high school or primary school? That's number one.
Hey guys, we are the Centtwinz,
and today we're here to mitigate the impact of conflict when it comes to the youth of 2023.
We've decided to give the youth a platform, and I believe a platform gives you an opportunity, it gives you a voice, and one thing about having a voice is that it gives you power. And one thing about having power as the youth is that you're able to implement change.
Ladies and gentlemen, on Centtwinz TV, please welcome the youth on stage.
The youth of today is the future of tomorrow. The youth of 1976 started the fight for a better South Africa, and although we continue to acknowledge the youth of 1976, we also know that the fight hasn't stopped and we continue to fight for a better South Africa. A warm welcome to the Youth Day special. I am Bontlama Baila, and today we have a special guest. It is Ngeba Ngwenya, President of the Ekurhuleni Parliament and also the Ambassador of the World Change Candidates, is here with us today.
Welcome. My name is Mpho Mahlangu. So today we are going to unpack and discuss what's happening, what happened. I go from like 1976 until now. The changes sailing hala and 1976 santsane le teng na.
Welcome. My name is Ntabise Mukhatle, and yes, today's discussion is going to be very open. I want to hear everybody's opinions on the uprising of 1976 with the education and everything within this.
All right. Oftentimes, the youth feels misunderstood, and this could lead to many of the problems that the youth of 2023 are facing. So, what are the biggest hurdles in our education system right now?
I feel a problem in our education system today is that some schools don't have enough money to provide enough education for learners.
Sure. Another thing that I feel like is the biggest problem in our educational system right now is that we need to learn things that are very impactful in our communities, just as skills and so on and so on. Not learning about only the history, but let us learn about the history and able to implement skills that are necessary in this day and age. I feel like that's one of the biggest problems that we have in our current educational system.
I also feel like with all the subjects and everything, you know, like Afrikaans and Zulu, why is there only like Afrikaans and Zulu? Why don't they offer like Setswana, Venda, Xhosa, you know, other languages?
Because if obviously you are going to do Afrikaans, but if when ubala lokshin like nakbala lokshin ibala Sotho, I understand Sotho. If ngwana happy in Zulu utobala Zulu abale Xhosa. The thing the African languages is just that we are going to how batla who save school.
Would you agree that in rural areas, those facilities to speak Sotho are there? Most schools in South Africa have the facilities for Afrikaans because if we date back to history, Afrikaans was the language that was pushed to most of us. So that's why so many schools in South Africa have that facility.
But now we need change. We need change. We need to improve. It's now 2023.
I feel like 1976 till now, the education system like has improved a little bit. Because like not all learners in all schools are forced to learn languages like Afrikaans. They offer like Tswana, Zulu, and other languages like Xhosa, you know.
In 1976, the reason they protested in the first place was because Afrikaans was implemented as a language of instruction and not generally of learning. As much as right now we learn other languages, they're not prioritized as much as Afrikaans is still prioritized, which is taking us back just like it was in 1976.
So you think it needs to evolve more, basically?
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. So the Soweto uprising is a historical landmark in South Africa, and I just wanted to add on the fact that after the Soweto uprising, South Africa really did appreciate and see the youth. They stopped just pushing the youth to the side, and they started looking as the youth as actual citizens of South Africa. The reason why I wanted to say this is because after the Soweto uprising, we started being recognized, which led to a more growth in our education system. They started focusing more on us and started improving on what can the youth learn, such as improving our skills, adding more things into the curriculum. So that is also something really important that happened during the Soweto uprising.
I feel like the education system has improved because like nowadays black kids are able like to go to universities, schools, because there are like financial system that can support them, like bursaries, scholarships. Yeah.
I hear you guys, but I feel as much as it's improved, I don't feel like it's improved enough, because the private education we have, like the reasons why private schools are so expensive is because that's how public schools should be, but they're not. So I feel like as much as it improved, that's how it should be in general.
But what is there to improve on? Let's talk about what exactly do you think South Africa's education system should improve on?
I think in terms of like teaching, because I feel like in private schools you're offered more subjects, more choices, and they may be more strict in terms of like, I feel like in public schools you don't really have the opportunity to like bunk or whatever, but in public schools you may, because it's not as, as strict or whatever.
By the way, banking is more on the student's account. It's not really on the school's account, because most students don't even care about school nowadays.
It's a decision.
Yeah, they don't care about school nowadays. Could it be because they don't appreciate our history enough? That could be a factor.
Sure. You're saying something that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying this because it's interesting, because I think we can all agree that environment has an influence in how you take decisions, right?
Yes.
The young lady here just made a very interesting point that kids go to school but they then decide to smoke drugs, teenage pregnancy. I, for one, went to a public school, and I'm here to tell you that public schools are the pits in youthful language, so to say. So I believe that there's a lot to do in our educational system, and we think we need to learn from the youth of 1976. Remember when Tsietsi Mashinini and Solomon Mahlangu were fighting for the rights of the young kids, and they were leading that march. They were leading the march for equality more than anything. So definitely we don't have equality. If there's a private school and a public school, and if you went to a private school and I went to a public school, and your opportunities are way more better than mine, then there's still an issue. And I shouldn't think, for example, the rates of teenage pregnancy are way more less in a private school, and the teenage pregnancy rates are way more high in a public school. That's a big issue. Things like that, I think we really need to look at. What can we do in our public schools to make sure that they look like our private schools in the same country? Sure.
I just wanted to add on something. Through my research, I had found out that around 700 people had died for us during apartheid, and 1,000 got injured. So I say we should just take control of what we have. Instead of saying, okay, there's no Tswana, or there's no Zulu, or there's no Sesotho, let's benefit on what we do have and make a better future for us all.
But remember, there's also so much we can put in our hands, though. We also need to go to the government and keep them accountable for, like, why is our education system like this? Why haven't we not moved on from all the issues from back then? This is 2023 now. We should be having one of the best education systems in the world.
So basically, back then we used to do it by rioting them. Like, we used to go outside their door, start banging, start putting everyone together and fight against them. But nowadays we have the resources to talk with them, like have a real professional talk with them, have them think on what we're saying, have them give us more of what we need.
Yes, I agree with, like, we have more resources nowadays, such as social media, such as our school even gives us those resources. We can go to parliament and government and speak on our opinions. But I would say that back then when we protested, we did it in somewhat of a peaceful manner. We didn't always do it such as breaking windows, throwing rocks. It was more of the police came and started instigating violence upon us. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes, it always usually resorted in violence. because that was how badly we fought for this thing.
In the experience that I've had recently with dealing with the government and parliament, it's safe to say that your government isn't willing to sit down and have a talk with you. Sure, they may give you an opportunity to have a conversation, but once you walk out of the door, they close whatever diary they were writing on and they throw it in the dustbin, in quotation marks. So I think what is more important, you spoke about something very important about you taking advantage of what you have now. I want to say to you, and I think this has worked for me in my previous experiences, that as you take accountability, let's not only be dependent on the government.
Okay.
I was the president of my SRC last year in school. So when I was the president at that time, there was no sports in my school, there was no chairs, there was no extramurals at all. You just go there and learn and go back home. And I was able to introduce that. So as people, don't only go and phone the minister, there's no sports in my school. Introduce that as a learner, because you are then in control of what you need to do. So as a member of an Ekurhuleni parliament that is in government, so I think you should then take charge of holding yourself accountable before the government, because you live in the community that the government doesn't live in.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's get to teenage pregnancy. Teenage pregnancy, tlile ka mhlolo he, ke qoqele. I stand. So I understand the whole na like hula. So na question e ke ipotsang yona ko hore why re sa khone like thata o ithate wena pele o itlise first pele.
Can I just add, I remember there was one point in time in other African countries where there was a spark in a number of teenage girls selling their body for grades. And I know it's something like that in South Africa. A lot of teachers will take advantage of teenage girls having low grades, and they'll be like, I can raise your grades as long as you come sleep with me afterwards. So that could be an influence in teenage pregnancy as well.
The other factor that like contributes to teenage pregnancy is like the rape in this country.
Yes.
Due to like there's like lack of security in South Africa, therefore like a lot of girls get raped and get pregnant. So it's like not everyone who gets pregnant is like influenced by maybe peer pressure, teachers not sleeping with them and things like that.
At the same time, I feel like not enough are educated also about like the risks of when you go and you know about like the diseases that could have, like HIV/AIDS and things such as unwanted pregnancies, and do you know what you're doing? But at times it's also like, you know, you're educated about it, but at times it's simply like it's not about peer pressure, it's not about that, but you still chose to do it. You knew that this and this was happening, but you still chose to do it, you know?
I feel like another thing that contributes to the rising rate of teenage pregnancy is the lack of sex education in schools, because most people, most teenagers fall into teenage pregnancy due to lack of understanding of things such as contraceptives and other safer methods to prevent things such as teenage pregnancy and STIs.
He's making a very interesting point, and I'm smiling deep down. You know, I was having a debate just last week with an individual about introducing contraceptives in our school environments. And are we saying that when we start introducing contraceptive, are we then giving a gateway for young people to start having sex? I think that's something that we should also think about, that educating people about contraceptive is it us saying that, no, okay, it's okay to have sex, but just then prevent yourself from getting pregnant. And are we speaking about that sex is not just only sex, but there's also soul ties into it. There's a lot that goes into sex. So I think those are the things that we should also look at, and from a young age, so that we don't just introduce contraceptives, but what are we educating our kids? Something like, and it's a very interesting point, that because we need to teach our young girls about contraceptives, but once we then start making it public and known and normal, are we then saying sex is okay, no matter the age, go ahead, have sex? And also going back to an interesting point of rape, are we then saying that rape is the only factor that is contributing to our teenage pregnancy? Because then we also need to look at that our young girls are then hyped up by hormones. The food we eat now also contributes as to how you feel. I think if you read a lot of books, then you realize that if you eat a lot of eggs, they enhance your hormones in terms of wanting to have sex. That's the food we eat now. So I think those are the factors that I feel like the panel should also discuss as well.
It's not easy ho tsamaye yo motswadi wa hao yo mjwetsa hore I did this, because sometimes unahana hore I'm disrespecting. So nan tseklo ichong manje ko hore batswadi ha re banang le dipilo tseo tsa hore ibe wena o qalang topic, maybe then o tla ba more comfortable hore a buqine sa bue hore I've did this ho etsahala so le so. And le ko sekolong ba re zamme ka LO ya bo life orientation ra bua le di teachers and stuff.
I think what getting teenage girls into pregnancy is because because of their friends and peer pressure, and just because of their friends they heard from their friends that they're pregnant now, and I think that it's because they also want to get pregnant just like their friends.
Can I just speak on peer pressure? Peer pressure is something, it's a lot. When I go to school, there's definitely peer pressure due to like substance abuse, and there's vape everywhere. And peer pressure, it has to do with your self-esteem as well. If someone comes up to you, do you want to do this thing? You need to be able to love yourself enough and say that this is not good for me. Could self-esteem be a factor in teenage pregnancy when it's peer pressure based? When it's peer pressure, do you want to go have sex? Do you want to try it for the first time? You're a virgin, you're boring. You should be able to say no to that. You should be able to say no, because your self-esteem is so strong to the point where you know the consequences. You know that it's not going to end well if there's no contraceptives, if this person may have an STD. Personally, I grew up in a Christian household, so I very believe like no sex before marriage. And everyone believes different things. But then why do people remove that boundary? Because kids are removing that boundary of sex before marriage. Is because we can't handle ourselves anymore? Is it because we believe different things? I believe, like, if you look back in the past, having sex before marriage was a big deal. It was something many people were very traditional, and having sex before marriage, it was somewhat illegal if you really go back. So I just want to hear, how did y'all grow up? How did you guys, were you taught sex before marriage is bad? Were you taught that something else, certain age, or what?
Yeah, and there's something else, like umemulo, when you are a Zulu, something else like umemulo, you go to ama-chichi, bayibisa ama-chichi lokishini, and then our heavy sex lapho bayakuhlola ukuthi now sesentombi until una 21, then uma una 21 bakenzela umemulo.
Yes, and I also want to add on to that. Sometimes it could happen because maybe you want to, you're young and then you want to date a boy. Maybe that boy could be like somebody who, wants to have that stuff, and he forces you to sleep in bed with him, and then maybe after a month, now you fall pregnant, and now he leaves you because of that. So sometimes it could be because of boys. Some boys want to force you to have those stuff, and there's a lot of young mothers out there because of that.
At this age of social media and the internet, a lot of influencers and celebrities are influencing girls to display, to over-sexualize themselves, and that also leads to males objectifying women for their bodies, and instead of building valuable relationships that will lead to marriage, and that leads to this culture of casual sex and hookup culture and all of that.
I think that having to go to your parents and telling them that you don't want to be forced into something that you don't want to do, it's not easy.
I want to note something you said. In my opinion, I'm allowed to over-sexualize myself without you having to want to have sex with me and make me an object. Girls who over-sexualize themselves are not asking for it. I'm not saying just because I'm dressed in this and that I want to have sex with you. Certain girls look for emotional stability in other guys, and it shouldn't just be on the females. Why are you not wearing a condom? As much as we are here together, I mean, sex is not just something that a girl does. We're doing it together. At the same time, why are you not educated enough to go wear a condom?
Yeah.
This one is very interesting. Number one, why are we as the youth of today thinking about dating when we're still in high school or primary school? That's number one. I don't understand why it's so a thing to date. Because, number one, you have all the time to do your homeworks, play soccer, be with your friends. I understand the matter of hormones, but there's something called self-control. I don't think there's any benefit in dating. You'll date after high school. There's still tertiary to date.
Going back to you, Ne, I feel like at this day and age, a lot of children don't have a lot of positive influences in their lives. And that because of that, children will always look for their nearest positive influences. So seeing that nowadays, a lot of successful people and influencers and celebrities are living reckless lifestyles, which leads to this over-sexualizing of females and all of that. And then a lot of celebrities are not advocates of pursuing your education and like getting your life together through means of legal ways or positive ways. So because of that, a lot of young girls are seeing people like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion and think that, oh, this is the life that people are living, and then I also want to be like this. So I feel like that's what leads to these children wanting to live these promiscuous ways and like living recklessly like we see nowadays.
Yeah, I agree with that, hey? But I also want to add children's shows. I remember when I was younger, does anyone watch Disney Channel? Does anyone remember Disney Channel?
Yeah.
Disney Channel there was always someone dating someone. There was always someone and it was mainly high school. And now there's even a show like Euphoria, kids in Euphoria in high school doing drugs and having sex and having all these traumatic experiences. These are not necessarily shows that are pushed to adults, they're pushed to teenagers, and therefore we are influenced by media saying that it's okay to date at your age and having all these experiences. Because if these celebrities can do it in high school, then you can do it as well. Since they can juggle their schoolwork, sports, and everything, you can do the same. So if I were a producer, I would film things that kids are relatable, because things that are relatable to kids, because I don't relate to dating. If I'm gonna be honest with you, I see kids my age doing it, but I don't relate with it. I relate with schoolwork, I relate with sports, myself I relate with religion, myself I relate with also things like dressing up and everything. So these are the type of things that kids want to see. We're not interested in dating, we're only viewing it because you're showing it to us.
And hona manje re tatetse dintho tsa batho ba baholo ha re sa dlala bo magcupsize bo mathashana, because we are itse hore yo mshimane o hakang bona ke mbashile utlo. So nna ntse ke tlo itho manje go hore ha re etseng di activities ha ka be o na le talent o tsama yo kenela choir ya tsebo ga go tla sekolong o etsa homework o kenela choir ha ona hani bashimane.
Now we're moving on to peer pressure and substance abuse. And substance abuse is a real issue that often leads to school dropouts and crime. Now I want to hear everyone's take on substance abuse.
Just wanted to add on something. So right now I'm in grade 7. What I love about the school is that it has integrated stopping peer pressure and the last topic, sexual intercourse, into the textbooks and workbooks. So now when you look through your book, it teaches you that don't always listen to your friends whenever they try to peer pressure you if you know it's wrong. They always teach you, try to build your future by doing your work.
Can I add that substance abuse is really, it could be also something mental. You know, we receive a lot of pressure from our school books, from our parents, from our teachers to do well at school. And a lot of kids go to things such as alcohol and vape just to distract themselves from what is going on. They feel that it's a way of me relaxing, to go away from the school books, to just wind down. So that's a reason why people also go to drugs and substances.
I think I'd like to add, I think also with vape is so like normalized, you know, at schools. You get people chewing in the bathroom, and they would call you like, hey, come chew with me, you know. And I feel like, you know, you would feel so pressured that, you know, if I don't do it, like I'm not gonna seem cool, I'm gonna seem uncool, you know. So they were gonna go and they're gonna do it. So yeah, I feel like it's just so normalized and it's not a good thing.
I feel like with this thing of substance abuse is, in my opinion, I feel like it's deeper than peer pressure and all of that. In this day and age, there's a very huge decline in mental health worldwide. So with that also adding that there are teenagers are facing other problems, like they may be troubles at home and all of that. And also the lack of finding good coping mechanisms. Teenagers feel like substances and alcohol is the more effective way in dealing with things such as their decline in mental health and dealing with household issues such as maybe parents divorcing, or like maybe their parents lost their job and all of that.
You said something about household issues as well. That could also lead to substance abuse. Because I remember speaking to a girl yesterday at school. She vapes and she was like, my mom knows I vape and she's okay with the fact that I vape. And also other parents, they can be abusing substances such as cigarettes and drugs, and the kid could also be influenced to do the same because they look at their parents and they think that it's okay.
And this is a very interesting conversation for me because by profession, I'm a drug activist. And when I was introduced into being a drug activist, I was also part of a gang that would smoke. And so officially on the 20th of April, 2023, I was 1 year clean. Sure. And this is exciting because I think you once saw the video that was trending off your school that was smoking dacha. I think if you once saw that, right? If you haven't, you can just go search on YouTube, Londel High, Dacha Day. You'll see it was a party on that day. And to be honest with you, from experience, right? It's difficult to say peer pressure when honestly our environments are really, really broken. How many of us are really taught to love yourself? Number one. How many of ourselves are a minority? 1% of 99, which is bad. So I think we should then start by uplifting our self-esteem. If you're learning self-esteem from LO for only 2 periods and then that's it, it's not really empowering your self-esteem. We should really invest in people's self-esteem. That's number one. Number two, we should really invest in social workers in high schools and primary schools and in our environments that are very accessible, because there are a lot of issues that we are dealing with as the youth of today. There's a high increase of divorce rates, which is affecting the mental states of young people. Hence, you then find you want to confide into drugs, vape, and so on. Hence, there is an increase in vaping because of a lot of our families are dismantling. That's number one. Number two, there's a big trend of going to groove and having fun, and you normally find girls on posters. That is also an impact of being able to cope with the environment. It has nothing to do with wanting to fit in most of the time. It is all, the reason being you'd want to fit in is because you don't know yourself as an individual. So hence we then need to invest into people knowing themselves. And I think this is what I'm going to implement when I become the president of the country. A segment of education that you need to educate people. Who are you? Who are you supposed to be? What impact do you have to have in the world? Simple as that. And when we start implementing that in our households, in our schools, in our environments, trust you me, we wouldn't be even speaking about substance abuse, because substances wouldn't exist in our environment altogether. Sure.
Yes, some parents could also abuse their child. Sometimes it's caused they drink a lot, maybe they smoke, and they have drugs and stuff that make them go crazy, I guess. And then sometimes they could start hitting their children, and now the child has to go to school all hurt with injuries and bruises, and that child may even feel scared to tell their teachers because they think that they'll get in trouble by their parents. So it's also caused by drugs and stuff like that.
Nah, like there's this other day, like next school, so it was Monday last year, first term. So I get to school and get like Oswaka Oyano onale miwaka. And so okay, busibo batlotana ayo groove. And so onule ha hole utawu, and so onale matwintu liana neli teenage pregnant, navala grade 9, first term a preg. So ke am jwetsa gore nna ho sane ke batlo ya sekolong so anya ke go salele bano ba nna vele ba tseba go eske ngwana o e ratelang sekolo yo motho wang shapa like ka go bua sefahleo.
But also, it's also choosing, at first it's choosing who you want to be around. You need to choose your friends wisely so that you don't have to be in a situation where you have to say yes or no to doing something that you want to do.
It is very important for us to fight against these problems and fight for one another. We have the responsibility to do the best with little and to fight for a better future and a better South Africa. Don't forget that we are the future.
Let us find things that we should then believe in and fight for them with all our might and strength, and we should definitely achieve what we need to achieve.
Well, thank you everyone so much for coming. Your opinions are truly valued, and thank you so much for helping us learn more about our Youth Day. Well, that is all that we have for you. Thank you so much for watching today's youth segment. I am Puntla Mabaila.
I am Nthabiseng Mokgatle.
I'm Paul Mahlangu.